if you want your kids to grow up well, show them that you can take time for yourself. Show them that you can find joy yourself, and that when you need a minute, you can withdraw and just get to a space where you can reset, and they will then start doing the same thing. If you're constantly putting effort into them and they're not in a good place, their only answer is going to be, I just got to keep trying harder and keep doing more and more and more. You know, that's the thing about parenting. It goes both ways. It's good and bad. So, hey, mommy's overwhelmed, daddy's overwhelmed. I just need a minute. Everybody just give me a minute here to collect myself, and then we'll try this again.
You're listening to Biohacking with Brittany. I'm Brittany Ford, holistic nutritionist, wellness expert, and mama. This podcast is your space to explore the science, strategies, and soul of optimizing your health through every stage of life. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining me today. This episode, I got to sit down and chat with Dr. Zaid Fadul, who is a Harvard-trained, board-certified physician in family and addiction medicine. And he is a leading voice in integrative health and biohacking. He has a Bespoke Concierge practice. And honestly, we really got into family health and women's health and really mother's health and motherhood and parenthood in general. This episode was so much fun to record because he is so down to earth. He has 4 children, and we really just talk about what it's like to actually try to raise healthy kids, how to have boundaries, what it looks like for mom to really be a superhero, even though she shouldn't be, and how much moms actually carry all of the time, the weight that they carry. And he sees that in his own family, but also in his practice. And so we talk a lot about this pressure and stress that moms can honestly be dealing with day in and day out. And we talk about what you can do about it, my own experience with that so far, and what we can also do in terms of longevity, especially for all the women in your 30s and 40s. What can we do right now so that we can hang out and run around and be strong and fit with our grandkids in our 60s and our 70s? And that type of lifestyle starts decades before. And that is really what we get into in this episode. It was awesome talking to him. Honestly, such a breath of fresh air in terms of the perspective he has on like family values and dynamics and how health and wellness also fits into that. And that's something that I'm building in my own life. And so it was super easy having him on the show. We have a lot in common and it was wonderful. I think you are going to get a lot out of this. If you're interested in working with Dr. Zaid, I will put his link to his Bespoke Concierge practice in the show notes and on my website. And I will also tag them on social media so you guys can all find them very easily. I highly suggest you do so if you're looking for someone who is a physician, specializes in family medicine, but also has that like holistic, integrative, and biohacking lens, which is really difficult to find, to be honest. So enjoy this episode. I know you are going to love it. And a shout out to Bioptimizers, my absolute favorite. You guys know I love them for their magnesium and their digestive enzymes. I'm actually heading out for the weekend. I am going like kind of off grid, and I know the food access is going to be a little questionable. So I will definitely be bringing my digestive enzymes with me this weekend, especially because we're driving 5 hours away. So I love to have them. I actually keep a bottle in my car. So whenever we're in a pinch and we're eating food that we might not eat all the time, I take these because it helps to break down the food faster, helps me to absorb more of my protein. And so it's not like you need to necessarily be eating more protein. It's more of you need to be absorbing more of the protein that you're actually eating, which is very interesting. And so I take these enzymes with me everywhere, help my digestion, my gut, and my protein absorption. I'm kind of moving into this phase of like a high protein diet right now. I know that's so trendy and I get it. I'm kind of like last on the bus with it, but I'm still trying it out. Now my brother is really like pushing me to do it. So that's what I'm trying, and that's why I keep them with me as well. So check out Bioptimizers. You can use my discount code BiohackingBrittany and it will get you 15% off everything on their website. And a shout out to Spermidine Life. This is such a cool supplement. It basically triggers autophagy, and autophagy is one of the processes in our body that starts to decline as we age. I actually think it starts declining at 30. And so if we take something like spermidine, it can actually help to trigger this process to happen more frequently and more efficiently, which is what we want, because this is the process of getting rid of old cells and allowing new cells to come in. And we want those fresh, new, stronger cells. We want more cellular turnover. And autophagy is actually one of the hallmarks of aging. So you can take something like spermidine, which is natural in the body, increase the levels, increase autophagy, and then benefit. And your longevity will benefit as well. So I take the one by Spermidine Life. Arguably, they are the best spermidine supplement on the market. I've been using them on and off for years. I've had them on my show multiple times. I really love them. And I will link them in the show notes for you. Discount code again, I think, is Biohacking Brittany. So check that out. And of course, I have to shout out my retreat. As always, it just launched a couple weeks ago. If you're listening to this and you are a woman who cares about optimizing her health and you're looking for a place to connect with other women, but you're also looking for a place to go on a retreat, but do more than just yoga and have green juice, this is for you. I've created a 6-day, 5-night retreat in Costa Rica that is focused on longevity, biohacking, and optimizing women's health. We're going to be talking about energy and mindset and obviously longevity. And we're going to be doing things like a functional movement class and workshops. And I have a cacao ceremony planned and a full moon ceremony planned. And there's an epic spa, and it's at the most beautiful place, 5-star luxury accommodation, all organic, farm to table food, every single meal. This is like biohacker's dream, this place. So if you want to come with me to Costa Rica next March, it's March 2nd to 7th, I would absolutely love to have you. I'll also be doing consultations with people right at the retreat, which is great because that one-on-one is super important as well. So people have already booked, which is so exciting. I'm just really excited to meet people in person because my whole business is online. And so I just want to cultivate a community in person a bit more. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this. I've never seen a retreat like this out there. Like never to this level of women only, women's health focused, but not just like BS dieting nonsense or yoga, like I really want to do something more and deeper than that and more holistic. And that's exactly what we're doing. So if you want to come to Costa Rica, I would love to see you in March and enjoy this podcast episode. You can find all my links, all my information on my website. You can find the retreat sign up on my website, biohackingbrittany.com. If you have questions, message me on Instagram at biohackingbrittany. And other than that, I will catch you very soon for another episode. Welcome back to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Today's episode is going to be all about women's health and longevity, which I absolutely love talking about. And I am joined by the well-experienced, well-educated Dr. Zaid Fadul. We were just talking about your name. And I'm just excited to pick your brain and hear what you see in your clinic with women, especially mothers. I have a lot of moms who listen to this show. So I'd like to just dive in and if you can kind of start us off with maybe even this year, what you're seeing when it comes to women's health for the women in your clinic.
I'm seeing a strong interest in taking power back and actually advocating for their own health, which I think is great. My wife we have several children, and I've watched her. She's 35 years young now. And she's exactly a demographic, and she's very excited that I've been invited on. So thank you for having me. So the biggest thing I've seen is that there's a huge push into femtech right now. There's a big conference here in Arizona in 2 months, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas every year. Last year, I think 40% of the products were about new femtech that's coming out, things that'll track your period and other things like that. And they do that by tracking your baseline temperature because they adjust depending on when your period is and other metrics like that. Women are actually taking control. And if you think about it, half the population has utterly been ignored for the majority of time. If you even look at medical studies, right? Like Ambien, I remember that was a famous one. They took all the female mice out so that estrogen didn't conflict the results. And then they came up with the dose of 5 milligrams for Ambien to help you sleep better. And then most women didn't respond until they took 10 to 12.5 milligrams. Right. So you see stuff like this over and over again. And I think women are waking up to this and they're learning how to advocate for themselves, which I think is really great. So a lot of women come to me and they're looking for ways to get better support for their hormones, and make sure their sex life is where it should be. Make sure that they're getting better sleep and better rest. A lot of times, I used to think of mothers as superheroes because I watch what my wife does with the kids, getting up at night, early in the morning. It's like 24/7 being on call. It's residency, but you're not getting paid for it, right? And now I've come to realize that this is kind of like expected for women. And, I have to argue with my wife to kind of prioritize her own health and prioritize her own wellness, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if she doesn't take care of herself, and so I'm seeing that being more and more understood now. Women are really making an effort to invest in themselves so that they have more to give everybody, so that's what I'm seeing more now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you actually said that. I just had that discussion with my therapist like 2 weeks ago, being like, she said those words to me, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I looked at her and I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I've been taking my prenatals. I've been working out. I've been doing like the basic self-care. I'm not pouring from an empty cup. But her point was like, but what's actually bringing you joy in life? Like, how are you actually feeling purpose beyond being a mom? Taking your prenatal is not going to make you feel joy. And I was like, oh yeah, actually, you're right.
I have kind of a terrible example, and I hate to put this out in public, but I tell my wife all the time that we look at our kids and you almost feel like you're overwhelmingly trying to be better. I see it with my wife. I see it with every mom out there. They're like, I could do more. I could do more. I could do more. And I told her, I had to stop her at one point. I was like, look, these are our inmates. We have to clothe them. We have to feed them. We do have to love them. But the reality is, like, you just need to meet their basic needs, and you then have to take care of yourself. We're not letting the inmates run the asylum or run the prison system. So whenever she's going too far and just pushing herself too hard, I'm like, hey, inmates, just let's take a step back. Let's you and me go have a date night. We went to Europe for a friend's 40th birthday. We just got back about 10 days ago. It's the first real vacation we took with all the kids and then we felt guilty because we were having so much fun, but so much fun. It's like dating your wife again, and it's great. And my wife, at first, it was really like anxiety inducing because we had family come in and sitters and everybody's helping. But the reality is, like, you need to unplug. You need to support yourself. You need to have your own hobbies. You need to. You don't need your husband like harassing you too. Like, you just need to be able to take for yourself. So I watched how rejuvenated she got. We make a point to try and get her doing one night away at least once or twice a month. Even just check into a hotel and to not have the kids hanging all over her all night. You take a warm bath, something like that. Like, those little things you do for yourself make a big deal. Go for a walk. But we live in Arizona, so summertime's not that easy.
Yeah.
These are things I think are really important for mental health, which then translates to everything in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's honestly so much easier said than done, because there's so much anxiety and shame and mom guilt of like, oh, I'm leaving my kid to do this thing that brings me joy, but shouldn't my kids bring me joy? So why should I look for joy outside of my family? And there's all this pressure. Honestly, I think it's just like societal pressure, internal pressure. I don't know. Like, I definitely feel it. And I only have one kid.
Let me put it in this way that everybody understands. We all like working out, I assume, at some point, and you go lift weights. The day after you lift weights, you need to recover. If you go out and lift the exact same set again, you're not getting as much out of that workout session, and you're running the risk of hurting yourself. So you need up periods and you need down periods. And it's cycling through is really, really good, because if you can take time for yourself in a down period, that's when you can rejuvenate and bring more the next time. Just like working out. If you take one day off to recover, the next day you're like 5% stronger, 2% stronger. So you have more to give. So if you look at it over a long period of time, if you can take days for yourself, or even just afternoons, or just a walk to break up the fatigue and the mental anxiety, and not bring anybody else, not think about anybody else, you'll be rejuvenated. You'll have more oomph to put into your next approach. So, and I tell every spouse, especially husbands, I'm like, man, you need to take over the kids. It doesn't matter if mom is a superhero in your eyes, because in my eyes, it's really a superhero. I don't know how she does it. And then when she leaves for a night out with her girlfriends or something like that, my Parker factor is 5. You know what I mean? And I hold on and I hope, and I'm just trying to keep everything. I just want to keep them alive. You know what I mean? I just want to keep everybody contained, keep them alive. I put my phone away. I'm like, okay, I'm here, but kids, you got to help me. I'm going to make dinner. That's the only thing I'm confident with. Bedtime, she has her magical way of putting them to bed. I don't know how she does it. You do it, but, just giving her that space makes a difference. And it's important. And the kids need to see you as dads do it too. Like, if you don't do it and you're just out there, I'm working for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Like, it's bullshit. Like, you need to be putting time in, and not to be 50-50, but even that little bit of, 10 to 20% of you taking everything on, it says a lot to your partner, makes them feel more secure, makes them feel like they can relax and get away. So it's really both people. I talked to both patients, and husband and wife, about this, because it's got to be a team effort to get mom to have some space.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love that. Two things. One, someone once told me this quote, and it's like, everything works better if you unplug it for a few moments, even you.
Yeah.
And like it does. Like when tech is not working, unplug it and it works again. And it's like the same with humans. We just need to unplug. And then the other thing, I think my husband could totally relate to what you're saying. Like I see it in him. Like he is a provider for sure.
Yeah.
But he also feels pressure to be a hands-on dad as well in today's society, and to do the diaper changes and to like know what's going on. He comes to all the doctor's appointments. But I also wonder if there's like a level of burnout there as well, if he's trying to be so hands-on, but also trying to be provider and be a great spouse as well. Like, do you see that playing out in your couples as well?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the key is not putting pressure on yourself, right? So the best marriage advice I ever got really applies to this exact situation. I used to work in Montana, and everybody there, they've all been married 50 years. They all eat red meat 3 times a day and smoke every day, but they seem to live the best lives. So, and the one advice I got from a couple of people was that in a marriage, it's not 50-50. And that's usually the biggest fallacy, especially for young couples. You think, okay, you do chores and I do these chores, right? And we just keep doing 50-50. This guy told me, he said, hey, young man, listen, you got to go 100%, both of you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what? He's like, 100%. But the 100% means something different every day. So if your wife is doing finals week, yeah, she's not going to be helping around the house, and you shouldn't be keeping track of that. You should go all in on supporting her while she's doing finals, and you carry the load. And if you've got a really terrible week at work, then you carry the load. If you sit back and you hold back, other couples start recognizing that. Or if you try and meet it out, I tell my wife all the time, do what you need to do and let me fill the gaps, right? Like if you need a break, take a break and just tell me, hey, you need me to step in. And it may not be the norm, but I will jump in and help out more, like her going away one night a month, with her girlfriends and just having a night to, let her hair down. Those things really matter. Now, am I normally watching the kids? Am I normally putting all the kids to bed every night? No. Do we divide it up most nights? Yes. Right. Sometimes she'll take the little one. I'll take the 3 olders, something like that. But we don't, like, it's not a hard and fast rule. And if she needs me to carry the load, I will. And if I need her to carry the load, the key is just communication, right? I just talk to her, say, hey, I need something right now. Just give me some space to do this. Today is Monday. Yesterday, I had an emergency meeting for one of my patients. They called me 6 o'clock at night. They just needed my attention. You take it, like you take the call.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, I was like, I am so sorry. This patient really needs me. Can you give me some space? She said, yes. The minute I was done, we traded. And I took the kids, and my wife focused on the little one, and I got the 3 older ones who were going a little much last night. You follow and so you do that. And do I normally work on a Sunday? No, I don't. And I felt kind of guilty doing it. But the patient really needed some help, and I was like, it's fine. That works. So even with you, with your show, there's going to be moments where you really need to focus and research and prepare. But you're not doing a show every single day, right? So so it goes up and down, peaks and troughs. And that's marriage.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's just the mental aspect of it that takes a while to get used to. And maybe it gets easier in a way after more than one kid, because you kind of know what to expect. Well, okay, this is what I'm telling myself. Okay.
The first kid, every mom is like, oh my God, that's the bubble baby, right? Oh my gosh, I've got to be very careful. Car seats are appropriate, but now I got to meter out every food. And I got to. By the second kid, you're like, okay, well, I didn't hurt the first one. By the third kid, they're eating dirt and you don't care. You're like, it's fine. You know what I mean? Roll around the dirt, it's fine. Just don't swallow too much, right? Like it just is such a shift because you've done it, you've been there, and you know. I don't judge anybody. It's terrifying. You're responsible for another human being. It's parenting, like the hardest thing I do, because in the end, you're basically parenting in a mirror. They see everything you do, whether you want them to see it or not, and they mimic it. So if you yell at your kid, guess what they're doing? They're yelling at you or yelling at their sibling, and it's because they're learning it from you. So you don't even realize it. You just get short. If you're impatient, they become impatient. If you chew with your mouth open, guess what they're going to start doing? So, very childish stuff. It's fun.
No, it's interesting.
Let me bring it back though. If you want your kids to grow up well, show them that you can take time for yourself. Show them that you can find joy yourself, and that when you need a minute, you can withdraw and just get to a space where you can reset, and they will then start doing the same thing. If you're constantly putting effort into them and they're not in a good place, their only answer is going to be, I just got to keep trying harder and keep doing more and more and more.
Yeah.
They just want to withdraw. So that's the thing about parenting. It goes both ways. It's good and bad. So we try and communication. We try and pattern, hey, mommy's overwhelmed, daddy's overwhelmed. I just need a minute. Everybody just give me a minute here to collect myself, and then we'll try this again. So
Yeah.
it's not about parenting, but like,
No, I love that though. Like you are the role model, right? And they model your behavior. Even now, like I have a 13-month-old and I can already start to see it for sure. I could only imagine when they get older.
The first teacher for every child is their mother.
Mm-hmm.
The second teacher is the father, hopefully. And the third teacher is the couple. How you two interact, how you talk to each other, how you support each other, how you back each other up. Your child is learning that, and they respond to it. If they hear you guys arguing with each other, that becomes a norm for them. And when they find somebody, when they get older, that argues with them like that, it feels comfortable, like a salmon swimming upstream to get home and to keep doing its thing. So I always tell people, I'm like, be aware, take care of yourself, take care of your spouse. Don't be selfish, be self-oriented, but be mindful of each other's needs and be mindful that somebody's watching, because you're patterning, your husband is patterning the spouse that your daughter will pick, right? And vice versa. So you want to be aware of those things, and it's every reason to be selfish then in that space, because if you don't teach your kids it's important to take care of yourself, they're going to burn themselves out when it's their turn. So
yeah. Do you feel pressure to raise like very healthy children because of how educated you are in the space?
Not healthy. I feel a lot of pressure to raise resilient children. It's important. There's a 2-hit theory for asthma. If you raise your kid in a bubble, that first child, and their immune system is never exposed to any pathogens or any bacteria and things like that, it's looking for things to practice on. So then it comes near peanuts and comes to other things, and then kids get these crazy allergies. So I don't mind if my kids get sick. I think it's a rite of passage of life. And I don't mind if my kids eat a little bit of dirt. Don't tell my wife I said that. I think it's good to have dogs in the house because they're dirty and they bring dirt in, and there's some level of the environment they bring in, and they're exposing the child at a young age, and the immune system is ramping up. Now, resilience is a whole nother conversation. Everybody fails. Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody trips up, and kids need to learn how to pick themselves back up, right? I ask my kids all the time when they trip up. So you're 14, 13 months, you're not there yet, but trust me, by the time my first one was 2.5, every time he fell down, I'd help him up after asking, why did we fall? So he learned how to get back up. You know what I mean? And I'm always there to give him a hug afterwards. Every kid just repeat. They don't even realize, they just repeat it now because I yelled at him, why do you fall? And then I grab them after they get back up, give them a hug and a kiss. But the thing is, you have to learn that resilience. And at 3 or 4, it's when you mess up something you're drawing and coloring, and you get angry and you just want to tear it all up. And when you're 12, it's how your peer group talks to you, or if you do something embarrassing. And when you're 20, you fail at a test in college. And when you're 30, your career doesn't go the way you want it to go. If you can pick yourself back up, I think that's the biggest thing that all humans need, is that sense of resilience, more than health. I really feel strongly about that, because in the end, your health is determined by your mentality. And if you feel like you're beaten and you have to just give up, everything else will suffer. It doesn't matter how many supplements you take, doesn't matter how much sleep you get. So.
Ever snap at your partner over something small and then wonder, why did that bother me so much? Or maybe you're waking up groggy, craving sugar, breaking out, or feeling just off in your body, like your hormones are whispering or yelling that something is out of balance. If any of this sounds familiar to you, you are not alone. These are signs your body is calling out for support, and magnesium might be the missing piece. Magnesium is one of those non-negotiable minerals, especially for women. It plays a critical role in hormone regulation, stress response, blood sugar balance, sleep, and even skin and muscle function. But here's the problem. Most of us are deficient, especially during high stress seasons. Hello, modern life, motherhood, and go, go, go careers. Food alone often isn't enough. So that's why I take Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers every single night. It's the only formula I found that includes all 8 forms of magnesium, including magnesium orotate, which specifically supports metabolic and hormonal health. I love it because it helps with deep restorative sleep, stress relief and nervous system regulation, better digestion and fewer cravings, and supports my body through every hormonal phase, from luteal to postpartum. This is your permission slip to slow down and nourish yourself at the cellular level. Go to bioptimizers.com/biohackingbritney and use code biohackingbritney for 10% off. Even better, subscribe and you'll never miss a month. Plus, you'll unlock deeper discounts and free gifts as well. Trust me, your body, your mood, and your hormones will thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. There's actually a book that just came out recently called Raising Resilient Children or something like that. I have it on my nightstand.
It's on my list. Yeah, it's on my. I'm excited to dig into it. So
it's good. It's good, and it talks about all the types of parents there are, and like different life stages. Like my kid's like quite young, but even when you're talking about like falling down and helping them, like there's moments where like say something is like stuck or like stuck in a drawer or shelf, and he looks at me to get it out, and I just say like, "No, figure it out," and then I just wait, and it takes 5 times as long, but he actually is able to like figure out, oh, if I move this, then I can pull it out, and he does it by himself. But I have to like be so conscious of like, let me not just quickly do this for you. I'm just going to sit here and wait so that you do it.
That struggle is that growth at, right? Like they have to struggle with something to learn the concept, master it, and move forward in a way. I tease my 11-year-old, I'm like, hey man, I'll help you, but do you want me to chew your food for you too? Like you have to learn how to do that. Like what's next here? You know what I mean? He's like, can you help me? Yeah. What have you tried to do first? And then I'll jump in. Like I'm your dad. I'll always back you up. But my backup is not always what you think it is. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about screens and social media and the internet with children today?
I think for children, it's poison in a lot of ways. Screen time. I mean, screen time is hard for all of us, including myself, right? So you've got blue light that comes off. And what ends up happening is it downregulates melatonin and so it interrupts sleep. So if you're cutting off screen time 2 hours before bed, it's probably fine. But if you're there during the day, you know, it's got its own trouble. So I don't know if you ever heard of tech neck, people who sit there and stare at their phones. And so that stress you put on the bone starts to reinforce the bone and you start getting a hump here. It's crazy, right? So like there's so many weird ways that screen time is not good for us. The other thing for kids in particular, you will have delayed language development because they're not wrestling with how to say things. They're just passively watching it. The other thing with screens, and again, I say this as somebody who enjoys binge watching just like the rest of us. And I love, I'll scroll on TikTok just like everybody else. The other challenge is if you ever watch like a TV show, the next time you watch it, notice how often the screen shifts subtly, you know, the perspective shifts or whatever. And so you can literally train people to have much shorter attention spans. There's proper ADHD, and then there's essentially a form of acquired ADHD where your kid is expecting after every 4 seconds to be stimulated again and looking for something else. So if you're doing that at an early age, you're teaching them to be impatient and to be looking for something else. And imagine how you take that kid who's watching some awesome TV show that's really able to keep their attention for a long period of time and put them in school where a teacher's standing up at the board talking to them for 40 straight minutes. It's not going to work. You follow what I'm saying? So screen time has a lot of different layers of challenges. When you talk about social media, you know, again, I enjoy social media like everybody else, but I also don't base my image and mentality on social media. I don't have that Instagram life like everybody else does. Social media can be really helpful. It can be really hurtful too. They've found that people who are falling for conspiracy theory now are not older people, which is what I thought. It's actually younger people who get, you know, gotten by the algorithm, right? And then you start looking at one thing and you start getting really confirmation bias by looking at more and more content that pulls you down that rabbit hole, or even suicide rates in kids are higher when they're addicted to social media because they start feeling they're not keeping up, or they're supposed to be a certain way. In the end, they're just kids, you know, or they're just teenagers. It's the most rock and roll period of your life is your teenage years when you're hitting puberty and all these hormones are going crazy. You don't need images in your face telling you that you're not good enough or that you're not pretty enough or that you're not, you know, you're not strong enough. That's just me. I'm very, you know, again, I enjoy it, but at an older age, I've learned to moderate it. And until kids can get that sense, you don't want them being sidetracked into another form of addiction. So I didn't get a soapbox on that.
No. Yeah, it's very interesting. Like I don't know what we're going to do as kids get older. Just from the addiction standpoint. And I just like, I don't know, I had Facebook, I don't know, at the end of high school, I'm trying to even remember. And it was fine. It was manageable. It wasn't like in my pocket on an iPhone. And now it's like right there. And then there's like Snapchat and it like deletes after 24 hours and Instagram and all of these things. And then there's the dating apps that people like sneak onto, even though they're under the age of 18. There's all of this scary stuff that makes me so paranoid. I don't even want to think about it because like, how do you control it as the parent?
So there's always been temptation for our kids, and every parent struggle with this exact question.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to the presence of you as a parent. So I'm guilty of this being on my phone a lot. I'm working really hard to turn my phone off at 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock so the kids see me present. If they're
Nice.
seeing me on the phone all the time, what am I telling them? Right? We just talked about parenting in the mirror. I'm telling them this is more important than them, and I'm telling them that there's something for me there, and they're going to inevitably pick that habit up. If you find a way to engage your kids and keep them, we've gotten obsessed with Uno, No Mercy lately in my house. So the kids I love beating up on the kids with Uno, No Mercy. Because at this point, I'm like, it's in the name. I'm like, you're supposed to beat me. So I'm talking trash to all the kids. And, it's just fun, but they see me engage with it and they engage with it. And inevitably you're talking to each other and it's really fun vibing. If you find things like that and show them it's really valuable, in the end, all we want as humans, all we want is a sense of community. And that's what social media is providing a lot of people, is a sense of community. And so if you can do that in the home without social media, you're ahead of the game. And then you're teaching your kids that real people, like real engagement, holding their hand, talking to them in person is the most satisfying, version. We take our kids for hikes. We do all kinds of things to try and get them together and get them exploring. It doesn't mean they don't enjoy TikTok scrolls with us because we show them funny cat videos like everybody else. But it's a small piece of it. So what they're learning is hopefully learning their moderation.
Yeah.
Other parents I've seen, they'll, shut the phones off at a certain hour where they have the plan that will literally turn off the data. So regardless if they sneak the phone's off. So that's I'm all about the control there too. Like, I think that's a good idea once these kids get cell phones.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are parent controls that are coming into tech more and more, which I think is great. And needed, sadly needed, because there's just so much stuff on the internet that's really dark and like not appropriate for anyone really, let alone like young kids. But
scary stuff.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you talk about like social media providing a community, because I feel like it does, but I wonder if you were to actually, there might be studies on this, like if you were to actually look at the health benefits from an in-person community versus like a community online, would you actually still get that same like oxytocin, feel-good hormones? Like I think about when I go play pickleball with friends in my community, it's like friends, like, oh, we're hanging out. Like, this is great. If I'm talking to someone on Instagram, like that's not the same thing for me, but it's still community in a new way, I guess.
What we're talking about is actually dopamine. So
dopamine.
Yeah, we're talking about, no, but like if you and I were to hang out and you were feeling bad and I put my arm around your shoulder to try and make you feel better, you would release a little bit of oxytocin and make you feel good. It's what moms and babies have when they're breastfeeding and other things like that. So that personal touch, you can never recreate that. So it's always going to be healthier. But in the social media community, you're getting dopamine hits. You're getting a like, you're getting a heart, you're getting a comment, a retweet, a share, whatever. Just seeing somebody enjoying that or utilizing it somehow gives you a sense of dopamine, and that's what's addictive. And a lot of people don't realize that. And that's what's perceived as the community factor versus oxytocin or serotonin, our happy hormone, which comes from mostly stimulated by sunlight, right? So like, that's why you see people with seasonal affective disorder in the wintertime. It gets dark out. They don't see the sun as much. They get depressed just for the winter. Talk to anybody in Alaska or Seattle. And that's what happens, right? So you miss your serotonin hormone. If you're constantly on screen time and you're not going outside, and you're not playing in the dirt, or you're not hanging out with your friends and going on a hike, you're not getting the serotonin. You're not getting the oxytocin. You are getting dopamine hits, but it's like junk food for the mind. It doesn't really actually make you feel better. I don't know if that helps, but.
No, that does make sense. That definitely makes sense. Yeah, it's I heard someone actually call it not social media anymore, it's interest media, because like you kind of said, like we're all, like you and I are interested in functional medicine. Now all I'm seeing is functional medicine, and it's like this little asylum that we're now in of like, this is the most important thing and everyone cares about this, but everyone's algorithm is so different. So it does have the community factor like you're saying, but I also think it is pushing people to be, especially teenagers and probably even kids, to be at home more, scrolling on their phones instead of out in community, building relationships and having friends, which then actually relates to like the suicide, the anxiety, the depression, sadly, and the rates of like people no longer having sex, no longer having kids, all of that. It all kind of like trickles down.
Everything's connected, right?
Yeah.
It's one big pie. Everything's connected. You can only divide it so many ways, right? So if you look at the amount of hours in a day, social media is trying to pull you in. They're trying to take those hours. It has to come from somewhere. Either it comes from sleep, it comes from other connections, but it's trying very, very hard. You have to be cognizant of what you're doing. I said, very firm boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the value we can teach our kids and ourselves, right? I hate looking at my Apple iPhone and finding out my screen time. But it's sobering when you're like, oh, I only spend 2 hours on my phone, and it's like 7 hours. You're like, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so you see those things, and so I think it's important to set boundaries and it, be kind to yourself. You're going to fail. You're going to trip up. You're going to spend longer than you wanted. You're going to be a little bit more. When you do that, instead of feeling bad, reset. Say, okay, it was maybe a bit much last night. I've had it too, where you're doing an all-nighter for whatever reason. The next day, all right, let me unplug, right? Let me disconnect, hang out with my folks. Let me call a friend up and see how they're doing. And, somebody who I haven't really heard from in a while, let me just go out for lunch and see. My family is very close to several families, and we joined them for tacos on Sunday, and it was so much fun just hanging out, watching the kids play together. Nobody had their phone out, and it was really fun, and had nothing to do with the margaritas we had for lunch, right? So, but you get the idea, right? So you challenge yourself, and then what ends up happening is you start to titrate. You realize how good you felt hanging out with friends and family and doing things, and you realize that you did mentally enjoy the junk food on the Friday night, TikTok, doom scrolling. But you feel a lot better after that one, and your body will gravitate towards those things if you forgive yourself. You start feeling bad, inevitably you look for a distraction to not feel bad, which ends up bringing you right back to social media, which the cycle starts again and again. So
yeah, where do you think we're heading in general when in terms of screens? Because I just think of 5 years ago, I was not nearly as addicted to my phone as I am now. Even my mom and the people around me, I see scrolling in between dinners and meals and all the time, and it's like you said, it's an addiction. And I just wonder, how far is it going to go? We're already seeing the repercussions. Is it going to get worse, or are we going to bounce back and realize, hey, we actually need to be doing more things in person?
I think if very astute podcasters like you are bringing light on this, and you have people who are really taking an effort to take control of their health, they can short circuit a lot of the negative effects.
Yeah.
I think people who are not doing that, it's just going to get worse. So it's like any addiction, right? So
yeah. I think so too. I think you have to be very, very mindful of it. I forget what it's called. Elon Musk what's the name of his internet company that you have the satellites and you can take the internet everywhere? What's it called?
You don't mean SpaceX. You mean
we were just looking at it.
I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this.
Anyway, so we were looking at that because he came out with one that you can basically
Starlink.
Yes,
Starlink. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so he came out with Starlink that you can take on a boat now. So you could be in the middle of the ocean on your phone because of Starlink. And then I was talking to somebody about it, and they were saying that there's a potential that he'll actually just invent something that attaches right to your phone. So this whole idea of Wi-Fi in the house and let me log into the Wi-Fi at the cafe when I go there actually won't be a thing in the future. It'll just be on the phone with you 24/7. We have data now, but even, I don't know, data is limited, right? If you travel and things like that. So yeah. Ever wish you could slow down aging at the cellular level? Well, turns out you can. Spermidine is a natural compound found in foods like wheat germ and natto, and that's been shown to trigger autophagy, your body's innate cellular renewal process. Think of it as spring cleaning for your cells, supporting longevity, mitochondrial health, and even hormonal balance. I've been using Spermidine Life as part of my daily biohacking routine to support energy, skin health, and healthy aging from the inside out. It's the world's first clinically tested Spermidine supplement made with pure, high-quality ingredients you can actually trust. Ready to upgrade your wellness and age with more vitality? Head to the link in my show notes or on my website and use my discount code BiohackingBrittany for a special discount. We love that because you deserve to feel your best at every single age.
I think it goes back to what you're doing here with the biohacking. And I think it goes back to, look, you have unlimited resources in front of you and unlimited distractions. And the key to thriving and doing well is to be mindful of how much these distractions you let in, using the distractions when they're useful and you need a break, not letting them own you, being cognizant of your sleep patterns. For me, once I realized what the blue light was doing, I put blue light lenses into my glasses. So automatically it wasn't impacting it because sometimes I work at night and, it's never good for me when I do that. But what I realized was like, okay, this is an issue, right? And so, what you're doing by shedding light on all these simple habits and tips and tricks can really make an impact on people and let's give them a chance to take control. I don't believe we should outlaw social media and outlaw these other things or put restrictions in. I think we should educate people as much as possible everywhere we can on the impacts and have them start to make good choices for themselves and start realizing, you know what, maybe I shouldn't doom scroll for 14 hours at night after work. Like probably that's not a good thing. When I was 12 years old, I remember I thought it was the coolest thing in the world staying up till midnight. I mean, the coolest thing. And then, and then when I'm like 30 and like if I'm up past 11 o'clock, I'm so mad at myself. I'm like, I need sleep. Like, what are we doing here? And one night, I took my son, we run a road trip and we legitimately were out at 11:30. And just like me when I was 11, he's like, this is the coolest thing in the world. I'm awake and it's almost midnight. And I'm like, oh, kid, because he doesn't know any better, right? And so as you start to understand, right, I only know that sleep is important because I began to study it. And then I began to realize how I was feeling when I got good sleep and how I felt when I got crap sleep, right? And so educating, and so I taught him as well, and showing him that he's like, oh, this isn't cool at all. I'm like, no, it's actually terrible. You know what I mean? So if you think about it, and so education is the key. And what you're doing, I think is fantastic. So.
Yeah. I don't think you can stop it. Like, I don't think you can stop the evolution of tech. It's, but I just think it's going to require responsibility, radical responsibility and awareness, like you're saying.
Sure.
And it's almost like an uphill battle, but then the benefits are so worth it because you feel better inside, outside, you look better, everything, you know what I mean? Everything functions better.
Think about this, right? Because I don't want to take social media away. I don't want to take the phone away. In 1991, the president of the United States, had the less information available to him at his fingertips than you and I do right now with terabytes of information on our cell phone. So I'm not looking to go back to dark ages. I don't believe in that at all. I believe in using it in its key moments and using it for our health, right? Like, and so the things I've learned by studying large amounts of data for my patients, right? I track their data, top to bottom. I love that they're wearing peripherals and I love that they're researching things and asking me a challenge. Hey, what does Sermorelin do? Hey, how can I get better sleep? What's fiber maxing? I love that because they're having an interest and a curiosity, and then it gives me a chance to provide them my education and my experience and just say, hey, let's work together, find an approach that tailors to you, and make it work. If you rob them of those tools, it just makes my job, 10 times harder in my opinion. So it's good and bad. It's good and bad.
It's good and bad, of course. And it's great that we have access to everything like you're saying, right? Like wellness wasn't even really a thing, 10, 15 years ago? And it's basically become a thing because of the internet, because we can now look at like juice cleanses or wherever we were 10 years, 5 years ago with it. And now it's biohacking and longevity. And
here's the problem though. You get a lot of people out there that purvey all kinds of nonsense because they're trying to sell. That's a trade. It's like everything, right? Like you want to have a good source. You want to have a good, like in my case, I consider myself a healthcare Sherpa. I try and research everything that's coming out. And if it's legit, great, let's do it. And if it's not legit, hey man, let's, if you really want to do, I don't know, methylene blue, I guess. But there's like 30 other things you can do that can really improve mental health, from creating a sample, to daily walks, to consistently getting sleep, cutting out the alcohol. There's all these other things that can work. So if you're really interested, okay, and you just want to have that source that's reliable of like, actually, intelligence about their proteins and things like that.
It's so funny though, because like the low-hanging fruit like that, like the non-sexy stuff is actually what moves the needle the most. And people just get tired of hearing it. Like, go for a walk outside in the morning and get sunshine and move your body. Like, how many times have we said that? But people are like, oh, methylene blue.
Let me tell you, there's a great book. I put a book review on my YouTube channel. It's the first one I've ever done. And it's cool. It's a book called Spark by Dr. John Rady. Okay. Yeah. And it's actually specifically for mental health and women's health. Oh. And so he talks about how the impact of exercise throughout the entire life cycle, from teenagers with ADHD getting better focus, to menstrual symptom management, to dementia, prevention of dementia. So like literally, and so because of that book 3 or 4 years ago, I don't care what's going on. I make a point to get a 30-minute walk in every day, because if nothing else, I can drag my lazy butt around the neighborhood for 30 minutes. Now, when I'm feeling better, I'll go for a run. I'll go for a bike ride, or lift weights. But no matter what, I get 30 minutes in. And when you read this book, it's shocking, like just absolutely shocking, from managing, period cramps, to, managing all the other things that kind of like impact us throughout our life. So I made my wife, I freed it. Didn't matter that I told her about it for a year. When she finally read it, she's like, wow, I really need to exercise every day. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
This is one of the single best things. You
Mhm.
will not age as fast, right? Your skin will look better longer.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are worried about paying for Botox. Well, walking's free and it will improve
Mhm.
your longevity. It'll improve your health span. Like everything benefits from just get a 30-minute walk in, and then we'll talk about the other things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that applies for your kids as well? Or are they like naturally just so active that it's not a concern?
Well, so my son, bless his heart, has ADHD.
Okay.
And, everybody pushed on me medication. And I'm like, I happen to be an expert at dealing with ADHD. And so, for me, it's different, right? Get structure in his life, have good reminders and cues to get certain work done, give him free play time, which is so critical,
Mm.
good nutrition, he needs really good sleep, and he needs exercise. Those 6 things need to happen first before anybody talks about, pumping him full of medication. And so, that exercise is such a key component, like throughout your life. We're built to move. We're hunter-gatherers in a lot of ways. We're built to be in motion. So, the idea of sitting all day, I mean, they say that sitting is a new cancer, right? That's like, or the sitting is a new smoking, excuse me. So
Mhm.
you see it, your body's not built for this. It raises your blood pressure. It causes you to be obese, which then promotes the risk of heart attack and stroke, like all the things that go with that. And so, yeah, I think exercise is critically important in education for
Yeah.
kids, and throughout life. So.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's so great. He's so lucky to have you to like holistically understand all of that.
He doesn't think so. He's always thinking I'm pushing him too hard, but like, yeah, that's your job as a dad, right? I've got to be the guy who's like, come on, man, let's go. We got to get it going.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I played sports when I was a kid, and then I started going to the gym at 16 because, like, in Canada at the time, you were only allowed at 16. Now they've changed it to 13. I don't know what it's like in the States. Do you guys have an minimum age for you to allow kids into a gym?
so I think it's 12, and it's
Okay.
really gym dependent, right? And so they don't want kids unsupervised. So if you're bringing your
Right.
kid in and you're putting them on the treadmill and they're walking, that's one thing. If you have them over at the heavy weight section, you've
Yeah.
got a big beefcake waiting for it, probably you're going to get looked off the weight machine. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of like unwritten rules there, but I think generally most gyms it's like 12 years old and above.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's great. Although there's so many sports and activities for kids that like you don't even really need to go to a gym. Um, I'd like to just like switch gears a little bit, although it is on this topic, like for all of the women listening who are in their 30s and 40s, especially if they are moms, other than like going for this walk that we're talking about, if they're like, I really want to optimize for longevity specifically,
sure.
like I want to be super healthy, fit grandma at 65 or whatever age. What do I do in my 30s so that I can get there?
So there's so many things to do. We'll try and tackle each one, and we'll just go quickly to each one. So off of that, now I'll tell you everybody, we're talking about my wife here, basically. I'm going to tell you everything I do with my wife. I'll just run through here.
Mhm.
So my wife's very young and very strong and very fit at 35. Okay. She doesn't feel she's very fit and very strong and very young, but I recognize it because I know where she's going to be at 65. And
Mm.
so the first thing I tell her is that when you hit menopause, you're done with estrogen. When you're done with estrogen, you're going to, whatever bone density you have is going to start shrinking.
Yeah.
So the goal is to build up as much bone density as possible. You can do that by making sure you optimize your vitamin D and your calcium intake, right? So vitamin D from diet, from sun. You can do supplements, but that is a whole nother thing. You want to also be doing weight-bearing exercises, right? So walks are great. If you're doing a lot of swimming, you're not getting weight-bearing, but muscle weight training is always ideal. Hiking, I think, is a great activity. Rowing is a great overall body workout. And if you build up that bone density as you age, osteoporosis won't be an issue, right? That's one. Two is something called VO2 max, right? That's the maximum volume of oxygen your body can carry.
Mhm.
By the time you're about 45 or 50, wherever you're at, you're going to be at 60% of that number by the time you're 80. So again, you want to build your athleticism all throughout your 30s and 40s, because wherever you peak, like by the 50s, you've peaked and you're going to be
Wow.
gradually declining, just like your bone density. You want to take your 30s and 40s and build up as much reserve. The
Hmm.
best example, I don't know if you know who Tom Brady is.
Mhm.
He's quite a famous quarterback. And if you saw the picture of him coming out of college when he was drafted, he was this pudgy, awkward looking kid at
Really?
20. Yeah, it's hilarious. I would encourage everybody to go Google this picture of his draft picture, his workout. It is like, he looks 10 times worse than me. And if you look at him now at 47 years old, the guy is like a
Mhm.
Greek god. Like, it's amazing. but he spent 20 years building himself up. He didn't work out to have a certain look. He was on an anti-inflammatory diet. He was, working on agility and strength and, and aerobic impact. Like he was looking at all these different metrics, and he was never like happy with the results. He wasn't working out for a six pack. He was working out for like a lifelong level of health. And that's the thing I try and tell my patients. So you can do the same thing with VO2 max. You can do the same thing with your bone density. Women don't have heart attacks at the same rate men do until they're hit menopause, right? Because estrogen is protective against heart attacks, right? That doesn't mean don't look at your cholesterol now. One of my patients has pretty terrible cholesterol. And I remember she was only 32 when we started. And I was like, do you mind if I check a panel? She's like, why? I was like, just let me check. And so we went through it, and I identified this, and she had no idea her parents and aunts and grandparents, all the women in her life, died from heart attacks around 65 to 68. Didn't even think to ask until I checked the blood work. And so we got on a statin to minimize, and we changed her diet. And just knowing that ahead of time helps, because cholesterol builds up over time. And so if you can slow the rate of onboarding of that cholesterol throughout your arteries, you delay and delay and delay the inevitable heart attack and stroke. 50% of us get a stroke or heart attack in our lifetime. So, these are things that every other, one of us on this phone call is going to get a stroke or heart attack in our lifetime. Think about that, right? So if you know it's coming, your optimal risk ratio reduction is down to like a third. So if you do everything right, we'd have to have a third person. We'll give that person a heart attack on the phone call, right? Like that's ideally, right? If we're doing everything right. So these are the things you look at in your 30s to optimize for later. The next one I think is funny, but it's not funny. Like my wife, every woman struggles with weight. Well, most women struggle with weight after having children, especially when they have a 2, 3, 4. And that's challenging. Obesity is one of the preventable causes for cancer. And obesity will shorten your life by 10 years comfortably, right? I heard a thing that Charles Barkley said, which I thought was so funny. He is this very entertaining basketball player, and now he's a commentator. And he said that his doctor told him that the reason you don't see, fat people that are older is because they're all dead. Right. And there's something to be said for that. Right. So when you're carrying an extra 10 pounds of weight on your waist, it creates 100 pounds of pressure on your knees. And so your quality of life goes down. Then you're not going to get outside as much. So in your 30s and 40s, if you can do whatever you can to arrest that, whether it's GLP-1 use or optimizing to a whole food diet or eating an anti-inflammatory diet and those types of things, you're setting yourself up for a life of health and longevity. That's the goal. So I love grabbing patients in the 30s and 40s because right now, everything's great. You feel good. You've got strength. You can get out. You can walk. You can work out. You can, when you get older, your metabolism slows down. Right. And so when I was 20, God, in retrospect, it's crazy now, but I could run 7 miles. And I could run 7 miles after taking 3 months off. It didn't matter because you're 20. You're like a velociraptor. But when I'm like 40, if I took a week off, I couldn't run a mile. I had to work my way back up. And it was so frustrating. And so as we get older, imagine, I don't know how I'm going to feel at 60. I'm 46 now. Like I can only imagine, like I feel it. Like you have to stretch now, which is the thing I didn't have to do 20 years ago. And you have to be cognizant of your loads because you have to ease into some of these things and you're training your body and your muscles. So these are all things I think patients unequivocally should do. Other things I think is your diet plays such a big role on your hormonal balance. So women really don't think anybody realizes this. It blows my mind, but women in particular, women are very sensitive to microplastics and processed foods, right? And so getting microplastics out of your diet, getting a simple water filter and getting away from plastic bottles is probably the single biggest thing that most people can do. And it stops messing with your hormones. There was a study that came out recently that said that the average person will have like a spoonful of microplastics in their brain, which is crazy to me, right? By the end of their life. Like it's crazy. That all that does is dysregulate everything, right? It's not helping you. Like you don't have room to just have microplastics sitting in your brain, but that's just a function of what we're eating. And you look at processed foods and you're taking inorganic material into your body, it starts to dysregulate your hormones. You're not feeling well. You're not exercising like you should. Sex doesn't feel as good. Like everything gets impacted. Hormones are your messenger system. So messing with that, imagine how frustrated you get if you send an email and 2 minutes later, your person didn't get that email. You'd be like, what's going on? Right? You expect it to be instantaneous. It's the same as your hormones. You expect things to work like they're supposed to. You don't want to throw them off. Once you throw them off, the symphony gets all messed up.
Yeah.
You're just off the bat. I mean, there's other things too.
No, I know.
You get the idea here. You want to keep working through colon cancer. Colon cancer is now higher rates of colon cancer in the 30s and 40s than ever. I think it goes back to fiber. If people are not eating really good fiber with their diet and they're eating, again, lots of processed foods, their colon suffers, right? And now we're seeing colon cancer at younger and younger and younger ages. So these are all things that eminently fixable, eminently treatable. You have to know. Like I look at myself now at 46, tease my wife all the time. We started dating when I was 36. Now we're married 6 years. And she used to ask me, because I was so focused on like, let me get my run-ins today. Let me do this, let me do that. And she'd ask me why. And I'm like, I'm just managing my decline. And she thought I was kidding, but really 27, you've peaked. And from that point on, I would rather a slow decline than a fast decline. Right.
Yeah,
and that's how I tell people, I'm like, hey man, I want to just manage this decline as graciously as I can. You know, I want to make sure that at 75, I can still hike with my kids and play with grandkids and get on the ground and not be complaining about my knees hurting or, you know, being so stiff because I never stretched and did yoga, or my mind being so burned out because I never really got into meditation when I was working in my 30s and 40s, working really hard to build up, you know, my support system. So.
Yeah. I agree with everything that you're saying. And I've seen it both ways. Like one of my best friends, her mom is in her 60s. She's still working. And she had a baby, like my friend had her baby. And she thought her mom would be able to help out more. But her mom struggles to lift the baby and like struggles to actually walk and push the stroller a few blocks because she's just not fit. And so now it affects her because she thought she'd have more of a village, but she doesn't because her mom is not in a healthy place. And then she encourages her, and then her mom just kind of like brushes it off.
How do you think her mom feels knowing that she's coming up short? You think it doesn't affect her mental health?
Yeah, probably terrible.
Yeah. And then what do you think she probably does? Shy away from the thing that's making her feel bad, which probably makes her friend feel a little bit abandoned. And yeah. I mean, it's a cycle, right? So, you know, I was never this focused on longevity until kid number 3 showed up, you know, and then I'm like, damn, I'm getting old. I just got a little girl who's 5 years old now. I'm 46. I mean, it's like, at 61, I got to make sure I intimidate whatever guy she brings home. Like, I've got to make sure that's there. Okay. We're just being honest here, right? We're 2 girls having tea here. We're just being honest. Like, there's that level of like, hey, wait a minute. Like, I've got to be there. And I want to, you know, and then she's going to grow and I want to give her whatever love and support I can. And I'd like to think that my kids is going to have access to me till they're all 30. Well, my youngest is 15 months now. So that means I got to go strong until 75, like minimum. And I'm still trying to talk my wife into one more. Like, you get the idea. And people are having kids at a later and later age. Halle Berry had 2 kids, 43 and 45 years old. So you want to be present. You want to be strong. You want to show your kids the world is out there. And it's waiting for you to go do it. Otherwise, they get sucked in to the matrix of social media and they get plugged in and they can't unplug and they miss all the beauty this world has to offer.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think about women having kids later, not from a socioeconomic standpoint, but just from a health standpoint? What have you seen?
Pluses and minuses. So for women, since we're on a women's channel here, women seem to do better. We call it nulliparous. And nulliparous women, women who have not had kids typically have slightly higher rates of ovarian cancer or breast cancer, things like that. The women that do. And then later in life, there are some more complications than earlier, but they're trade-offs, right? Like if you had a baby at 20 and you're not in a stable relationship, and I don't know about you, I don't have a useful thought in my head at 20 years old, you know, so like, you know, and you're having kids, the stress level from that is exhausting, but then you got a new lease on life because by 40, 45, and a lot of people, that's really their peak, not their physiological peak, but their person peak, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's value, have your second life again, and you can really raise grandkids and all those things. But women who wait till their 30s to do it, they've got an established career. They've got that sense of confidence. They've got a lot more wisdom to offer. Typically, they have more resources as well, which allows them to be more present when they're present. Right? Think of somebody who's got 2 jobs in their 20s trying to raise a kid on top of that. You're really not there, which leads to parental guilt, which leads to pressure, and you feel like your kids are missing out. And you can never make that time back up. Yeah, it's always my persistent struggle is like how to balance work and projects with the military with the children. Like I love them. Adam Sandler said he actually, it's funny. He said this in an interview once. He said that you should have your kids as early as possible so they can have more time knowing who you are. Right. And so that's the trade. Like I'll tell you a funny story. So I took my kid cross country a couple of weeks ago, and I used to be an underwater photographer. Like I was very adventurous in my 20s.
Wow.
I like the things I did. I've been bitten by a tiger, and I've been not bitten by a shark, but attacked by a shark once. I don't know many people who've had both happen. Like everybody's had one or the other, but like I've had both happen. But I am a fairly irrational person with a camera in my hands. It's probably the only way I can describe it. And my oldest and I were hiking through this wildlife park in Texas as we're driving across the country in the bus. I almost stepped on this 4-foot long rattlesnake. And I recognized immediately that I scared the hell out of this thing. And my son was freaking out. And so the snake coiled up. Well, I know how to read wildlife behavior, like I know, and I definitely know how to handle snakes. So I turned, I made sure there's no other snakes around. I look at my son, I'm like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. But the snake, I'm like, yeah, stay behind me. So me and that snake, we must have spent 10 minutes. I got videos, I got pictures, because I knew what the snake was thinking. It was scared of me, and I didn't want to be aggressive. But there's a way to safely approach 5 feet away. I showed my son how to do it. I was like, look, he needs a 4-foot strike radius. You just need to keep at least 5 to 6 feet away. Do not corner the animal because it will strike back. And my son saw the underwater photographer dad, or not dad, but the photographer's aide, and he was like, Dad, you're crazy. And like, keep in mind, this is the same guy who's like, hey man, let's be careful. Let's not do this. I'm always trying to make sure he's growing in a way that doesn't, mess him up. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there dancing with the rattlesnake for 10 minutes. And he was like, who is this guy? Like, my kid seeing that, he'd never seen that version. He's heard stories of, and he's seen my work, but like to actually see it in real life and me transform from dad to like underwater photographer mode, blew him, and it was like, you didn't know I did that? He's like, no. And keep in mind, I've like seen bobcats hiking and stuff like that. Like, and he was a little kid, so he didn't appreciate the danger. When you kind of come across stuff you really don't want to be coming across, he didn't appreciate any of that. So at an older age, he saw it and he loved it, and he wouldn't stop telling everybody that I almost caught, and I didn't try and catch the thing, but he couldn't stop telling everybody. It was a highlight of we had a 3-week road trip to Florida, and that was the highlight of the trip for him. All he talks about is the snake, and I was so surprised by it. So you think about it, like you're now a podcaster or a basketball player who's winning the championship. If your kids are around to see you in that vibe and not just in dad mode or mom mode, there's so much value to that. I realize now versus my dad who had me when he was, I don't know, 43 or 44. So now he's 89. He is not hiking with me. We are not going to do stuff. And things that I missed out on as a kid, I'm trying to make sure my kids see and appreciate, because it's just different, right? Like, think about, we talked about resilience at the beginning of this hour. And if your kids see you tired and still pushing through, whether it's on a hike or whether it's at work or other things like that, and they can learn key lessons from that and seeing you in different lights, I think that reinforces the life lessons we try and impart on our children. So there's pro and con for everything. I think the sweet spot is having kids in your 30s and having enough success where you can afford to engage with them, and then making sure you take really good care of yourself so you're still vigorous at 60 and 70 to be very present in their lives, things like that. For me, that's the sweet spot. But like,
I love
everybody.
that. What about, if any, the health implications of women who are having kids in their 40s?
So again, if you have the appropriate support, monitoring, nutrition, you run the risk of there's increased risk of Down syndrome, which is a big scary thing out there, right? It goes from 1 in 1,000 to I think 1 in 100, which is a 10x factor increase. And I think it grows up every year after that. It's scary, right? You look at other autosomal issues. You look at gestational hypertension, preeclampsia. There's a lot of complications for women. As long as you have really good monitoring and support and you've taken care of yourself, right? So it's both things. You can do it, right? And you can see women are having children. Again, Halle Berry is 43, 45. She's in excellent health and she did it. We didn't, we called it a geriatric pregnancy, which I believe is any pregnancy over 35. But she had them at 43 and 45. There's no reason other women can't do it, but you can't do it and not go see the doctor. You can't do it and have a poor diet. You can't do it and not be optimizing your health and your sleep and all those things, because every time you have a child, it's incredibly taxing on your body. It's just incredible. And you went through it, right? So I've had patients that have had kids at 25, 35, and then 40. I remember this lady had 3 kids and I delivered the last 2, and so, she told me at 25, she'd back in 3 months. She was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm walking around. Then she had at 35 and she was like, Zaid, it was exhausting. And I literally thought, it felt like it took me a year just to get back to the baseline.
Yeah.
And at 40 was it literally took her 3 years to recover. She,
Wow.
I was shocked. I was like, are you serious? She's like, yeah. To get my body back, to get my mind back, because not only are you having the baby, not only are you recovering, but now you're raising the child and you're having less sleep, you're having more stress. The good thing is she had the youngest or the oldest to help with the youngest. So she had some help, but you get the idea. There's so many things that start to pull you down. Not any one big thing, but it's all these little things. So if you have enough resources, enough support, you have a husband who's smart enough to let you sleep every third night and breastfeed or not, bottle feed the child or something to help, then you can manage. But
Yeah.
if you're not thinking in those terms, if you're not optimizing all these different areas, if you don't have your nutrition tuned up ahead of time, it's really challenging.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I took my recovery so seriously, like so seriously. And I probably felt back to normal at like maybe 8 months or so, I would say. As in like I could like lift weights in the gym completely and there was no pain. And I had a C-section. So I like was really smart about it. And I had to be really thoughtful about all of my recovery. Yeah. And I thought it would be sooner. And I had him at 30. I'm 31.
So we talked about my wife. So I took her hiking while she was 13 weeks pregnant. I don't recommend this. But we got tickets a year earlier to Havasupai, which is a famous backpacking thing. And it was, so I forget a year later, I'm like, I'm going, because I'm like, she's like, I want to go. I was like, but you're 13 weeks pregnant. She's like, well, man, you're a doctor. If I can't go with you, who am I going to go with? I was like, all right, point taken. So we hiked. And by the way, I carried her pack and my pack. And she walked 8 miles to the town and then 5 miles to the campsite. She did it. 6 weeks later, we were at another trip, seeing the Horseshoe Canyon, because we live in Arizona. So all these things are within a couple hours of us.
Mm-hmm.
And she struggled to walk 1.5 miles down to the canyon because she was so much more pregnant and there was less lung capacity.
Yeah.
So we were tracking her VO2 max the whole way. She had a VO2 max, very athletic, before we got pregnant. She had a VO2 max of like 39. It's pretty good. It was down to like 32.
Wow.
It was down to 22. Well, when we're talking 6 weeks later, she was shocked. I was shocked. And it took us a year to help her train that back up with very specific exercise. Because if you're not getting good sleep, you don't get the recovery that you need to. And if you're not nutrition, so all these things, you need a full court press. You really need to be thoughtful about all these different areas of your life to really bounce back. And I think 8 months is pretty good. I wouldn't judge yourself on 8 months.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Yeah. 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 I thought it would be faster, but then I don't know. Like I'm really happy now. Like,
are you going to have a second one?
Pardon?
Are you going to have a second one?
Probably, yeah. But I really think that for optimal health for mom, I think there should be at least 2 years between when she gives birth and when she gets pregnant again, in terms of like hormonal balance and filling up nutrient stores and things like that. And I actually got my period back 4 months after I had my baby, which I was shocked by. But then I realized that that's a really good sign that my body is actually recovering and being healthy again. And then there's some women who don't get their period until like a year later.
Yeah, and that's good or bad depending on who you talk to, right? So my wife was not happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is great. You're healthy. And she's like, no, I don't want to deal with this right now.
Yeah, of course.
And when you're breastfeeding, right, you get the oxytocin or the Pitocin shortages. And you're not, so.
Yeah, interesting. Well, to wrap up, for all the women listening, what is one final word? What is one thing that you would want them to remember taking from this?
Advocate for yourself. I cannot believe how often I've seen women kind of like think that they're supposed to take a back seat to men or to their families. And I don't think that's really, everybody does better when you do better, right? I tell my wife all the time, she's a rock of the family. And like, I literally have to tell her to go do things like get her hair blown out, like, or get her nails done. Just take a little time to go be selfish or self-oriented. So I think your audience should really do that. Whether we say it or not, but all of us in the family look at you like a superhero. And, you're not a superhero. You're mom. And mom needs sleep. Mom needs food. Mom needs exercise. Mom needs love. Mom needs space. Mom needs joy. Mom needs all these things because it's not like Superman where you just go and expose to the sun and you power up. Like, that's not how it works. So advocate for yourself. It's okay. Like, don't put yourself last on the list. And every mom I know, even my mom does this to this day. She tries to feed me. I'm 46 years old. She comes to the house. She tries to feed me. I'm like, Mom, I love you, but please just focus on yourself. Enjoy the kids. And things. So I think your listeners would do well, whether it's peptides or whether it's sleep or whether it's diet optimization or whether it's just taking time to be alone and meditate. There's so many areas where you can work on to support yourself. And it's not just one thing. right? I love that you're taking your vitamins. That's great. That's not enough, right? And so those are the things I think are really important, hopefully.
No, I love that. It's such a good and important reminder. If anyone listening wants to work with you or connect with you, how can they do that and where can they find you?
Sure. I respond to the bat signal anywhere in the world. You just you're welcome to join my practice at Bespoke, conciergemd.com. We also have a mental health practice at betteryoucare.com. So either group, I lead both, and it's important to me that people get the right support no matter what their needs are. And so at Bespoke, we tailor everything to patients. We'll do either basic primary care, or we'll do what's more advanced things like HRT, hormone replacement or peptides. It all starts with the basics, though. You've got to get your sleep and your exercise and your nutrition and your emotional health kind of tuned up. And then once you get those things dialed in, then you can really explore all the other cool stuff that's out there. But you got to do the basics first.
Yeah. Preach. I completely agree with you. Yeah. So needed. Amazing. I will put that in the show notes and on my website so everyone can find you easily. Thank you so much for this discussion. It was great. And yeah, just love talking to you. So
it was a privilege being here. Thanks. Like I said, my wife's going to be pretty excited now.
Oh, good. I'm glad.